and his stunning win over seven-time champion Novak Djokovic, and underdog Marketa Vondrousova, the first unseeded woman in the modern era to win it all. She beat Tunisia's Ons Jabeur. Tennis journalist and author Christopher Clary was watching, and Christopher, my heart's still racing from yesterday's final between Alcaraz, the kid, and Djokovic, the legend. I screamed out loud a couple times. Did you?
Scott, yeah. We kind of wondered. It's been such an amazing 20 years for men's tennis with all these great rivalries with these guys from the same generation. And I think we all kind of wondered what would happen next. Well, it was just more of the same. It was a 20-year-old going against part of that older generation and Novak Djokovic, but the tennis was fantastic. It was suspenseful, and it went long form, like so many of these matches have for 20 years, 4 hours and over 40 minutes. And
my goodness.
And it was a sensational victory for the young man, no doubt about it.
And so close. In the end, did Alcaraz, you think, have a tiny edge, or was it basically even?
You know, you look at the stats, it was very close. I mean, they both, broke each other's serve the same number of times. I think the key really in many ways was that, Alcaraz came out and really was sort of shell-shocked in the opening set. Lost the first 5 games. Novak Djokovic was really sharp. I think he couldn't quite grasp what was happening. And I think it really, really helped in some ways to have an ability to be coached during the match, which is a new thing at Wimbledon, and to be able to kind of settle down and give some good advice and settle down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely was a factor, I think.
Afterward, Alcaraz did the traditional post-match interview. Let's take a listen.
I have to congratulate Novak. It's amazing to play against him. What can I say about him? It's unbelievable that you inspire me a lot. I started playing tennis, watching you. I mean, since I was born, you already was winning tournaments.
Since I was born. Okay, he's calling Djokovic old, and I'm like, Carlos, stop talking. Extract your foot from your mouth. But you have interviewed him. What is he like, this kid?
I met Carlos. I went down to Spain about almost 2 years ago now and spent some time with him at his training camp with his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero near Alicante. And he's a very genuine, warm, I think, cheery fellow. He's very, very upbeat. You can see that. He's like cracking smiles on the court, which a lot of guys in the past and big matches have not done. That's part of his character. I think he's somebody who's very close to his family, comes from a big family, got a bunch of brothers, a tennis family, and I think he's somebody who, as he gets more and more comfortable in the spotlight, those human qualities will come out. But he was definitely fighting through the English and the protocol yesterday, but I think he got his point across.
But when you looked at his face, as you're saying, smiling all the way through, Novak Djokovic, in an angry moment toward the end, he slammed his racket against the post, destroyed the racket. He's usually so composed, and Djokovic teared up a little bit during his post-match interview. What did you make of the moment for him?
So as so often with Novak, it was a mixed bag, wasn't it? I mean, I think he was incredibly gracious toward Alcaraz after the match, as he often is in defeat. He really handles it beautifully, quite eloquent when he speaks. And yet, his behavior during the match, I mean, he's got a lot of people watching, and he ends up cracking his racket against the net post like that. And I think sort of sparring with the crowd a little bit back and forth. Again, he was not the favorite yesterday, as so often has been the case. I think he might have been reacting to that with a little bit of frustration. But overall, I mean, it was he's 36 years old. He still has that fire in him. He can feel it. And he was going for the Grand Slam this year, and Alcaraz snuffed that out, going for the record of 8. With Federer holds that now, men's singles titles at Wimbledon, and he also got that snuffed out. So he had a lot of things to digest, and that overall I thought he handled it very well.
Let's talk briefly the women's side of the draw. Marketa Vondrousova of the Czech Republic. Tell us about her and her run. She was unseeded.
One of the biggest surprises in Wimbledon history, really women's tennis history. Never happened to have an unseeded player win Wimbledon, even back to when it began in the 20s, when they started seeding players almost 100 years ago. So clearly a surprise, but yet she wasn't unknown within tennis. She was a French Open finalist about 4 years ago, lost that final, was in the gold medal match at the Tokyo Olympics, lost that as well. And I think she just went on a great run. She didn't sneak in there. She beat 4 seeded players, including Jessica Pegula in the quarterfinals, was down in that match, and then played wonderful tennis, unlike Ons Jabeur, sadly, in that final, really rose to the occasion.
Yeah, Ons Jabeur, I'm a big fan of her. She carries the weight of Tunisia, the African continent on her shoulders. You think eventually she's going to pull through and win a Grand Slam?
You know, it's a tough game, Scott. You don't really know. The women's game is so balanced. There's so many threats, as Marketa Vondrousova proved. More young players arriving. I certainly think Holmes has a chance at Wimbledon again. She's got a great game for grass. But, you know, there are no guarantees in pro tennis. You have to seize your moment.
Tennis journalist Christopher Clary on a remarkable Wimbledon. Christopher, thank you. Here and Now is a production of NPR and WBUR. I'm Scott Tong.
And I'm Celeste Headley. It's Here and Now. Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 25,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
So China came out and said that it expects that the GDP will be around 5% growth this year. But as sort of the economic conditions has worsened in the last few months, people are starting to think that that might be just right on target.
The 2 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council for July 17, 2023 is hereby called to order, and I will ask our clerk, Ms. Susan McCoy, to please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Here.
Ms. White Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Volleson?
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Sanchez Jones is absent today, and Mayor Lee.
Here, and a quorum is present. Today, we will have, the invocation will be delivered by Bishop Frank Bailey. Bella. Is Bishop Bailey? Okay. All right, Bishop, how you doing, man?
Fine, good to see you.
All right. Following the invocation by Bishop Bella, Associate Pastor of the Greater Greater Prayer Temple Church. I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's stand please, and join.
Y'all stand, please. First, I'd like to say I'm thanking, praise God, even for the honor. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Amen. This afternoon, just to lift up a word of prayer. You know, prayer is the first thing we do in the morning. Prayer leads us a long way. Let's pray. Father God, we come this afternoon, Lord, to say thank you. That you woke us up this morning, closing in our right mind. Lord, we thank you for the food, that shelter, and clothing that they have, oh God. We thank you for your traveling mercy. Oh God, those that came out of their homes on the way to work this morning. We thank you how you watched over us all day long up to right now. We ask, oh dear God, step in this meeting, oh God, that you're able, Lord, let us be on one accord this afternoon. We're asking, God, that we can't do anything without you. Lord, we give you glory and we give you honor for the things you're going to do. We thank you for our health and our strength. We thank you for our families. Oh God, we thank you for the things that we're going to come to a conclusion of this matter. Oh God, that you'll step in this meeting, oh God, in Jesus' name. Oh God, we can magnify and glorify you because you're worthy to be praised. Somebody here need to tell God, thank you that you're able to wake up this morning. Can I get somebody to say thank you?
Thank you.
I don't hear nobody. Can somebody say thank you?
Thank you.
Hallelujah. Worthy of the praise, oh God. Oh God, come by, Lord. Have your way in this service, in this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bishop, for that fervent prayer. All right, let me just remind everybody that council meetings will be televised live and replayed on RVTV, Channel 3, on Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. and video streamed through Facebook Live at facebook.com/Roanoke VA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. Let me make some announcements or an announcement. The Council of City of Roanoke is seeking applications for various vacancies on council-appointed authorities, boards, commissions, and committees. Please access the city's website at www.roanokeva.gov to complete an online application. And that's an easy process. And we want you, all of our citizens, those here or those that are looking at viewing us through TV, to know that this council solicits your support in joining and being a part of our boards and commission. It's so important to help us govern our city. And so we ask you to fill out an application. It's very easy. You can go online or you can call the clerk's office and they'll walk you through that process. So we look forward to you applying for the number. And we have a number of boards and commissions that do important work, and it really assists us in doing the things that we need to do as a council. All right. We're now down to presentations and acknowledgments. And, well, we have some recognitions. I know the 10U All-Star team, that will be postponed until another time. And so I'm going to call on Vice Mayor Joe Cobb to go down and make this special recognition.
ADA. American Disability.
Yeah.
Susie, I don't see it here.
down there, I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to invite Karen Mikulski-Carney from the Blue Ridge Independent Living Center. She serves as their executive director to join me here for this proclamation for Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. Whereas the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities. Whereas the City of Roanoke, Virginia affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth for the Commonwealth of Virginia and is embodied in the ADA, the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia and ordinances of the City of Roanoke. Whereas numerous organizations in the City of Roanoke and in Virginia work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. And whereas anyone can become a member of the disability population at any time, it behooves all of our citizens to help ensure that our city is accessible to all, so that individuals with disabilities are free from discrimination and can move freely about the community in the same manner as those without disabilities. Now, therefore, I, Joseph L. Cobb, on behalf of Sherman P. Lee, Sr., Mayor of the City of Roanoke, do hereby proclaim July 26, 2023, throughout this great seven-time All-America City as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. We'll hold it. We'll hold this up.
Photo ops.
Oh, yes, we like a picture, you mind?
Mayor, you come. Oh, here it is.
Mayor, you going down?
Well, no, I'm sure George, well, I'll come down, I'll already take a photo ops.
Hey, Joe, do you mind to get away from the, yeah, because you really can't see it. Okay, there we are. There, just a little bit more. This one? Yeah, toward the mayor. Yeah, I promise you, he doesn't bite. Mayor, you need to just, I'm trying to get away from the laptop, because that's all I'm getting right now. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
I was actually at the White House on July 26, 1990, when President George Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it was a momentous day for individuals with disabilities. Our hope was that in the not-too-distant future, everything would be accessible to individuals with disabilities. And while we've come a long way, we still have a long way to go. So again, becoming a person with a disability is the only minority population that anybody can join at any minute. And we really would appreciate your assistance in ensuring that services, public accommodations, things the City of Roanoke does, are accessible to individuals with disabilities. And we appreciate the recognition of Americans with Disabilities Awareness Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Mr. Chittum. He's here. He come up.
Jillian's going to join me. Jillian is going to join me.
Sure. The more the merrier. Come on up. How you doing, man? All right. I have a resolution honoring Neil Holland upon his retirement after 39 years of service with the City of Roanoke. And I have a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, can you read the resolution in its entirety?
Yes, sir. A resolution recognizing and paying tribute to Neil M. Holland, a distinguished city employee, for his exemplary service to the City of Roanoke and its residents. Whereas Neil M. Holland began his distinguished career with the City of Roanoke on January 29, 1985. That month, Ronald Reagan was sworn in for a second term, and Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA topped the album charts. Whereas he began as a cross-connection inspection and was then promoted to a building inspector in 1989, and was then promoted to a combination inspector in 1995, and was promoted to deputy building commissioner in 2006, following the appointment as acting building commissioner in 2013. Whereas he was appointed by the city manager as a building commissioner in 2014 and has served in that position to this day. Whereas he served under 4 city managers, including Bob Herbert, Darlene Burcham, Chris Morrill, and Bob Cowell. Whereas he supported, led, maintained international accreditation of the Building Safety Division. Whereas he continuously sought to increase his competency and value, acquiring certifications for inspections and plan review for building, plumbing, mechanical systems, electrical, fire protection, and amusement devices, and obtaining certification as a code official in those disciplines as well, culminating with certification as a master code official, the highest level that can be bestowed. Whereas he is certified to perform certain trades, being a master electrician, master gas fitter, master heating, ventilation, and air conditioner, and master plumber. Whereas his manifestations of excellence to citizens, to the development community, and to his team have been many, some unrecognized and some recognized by numerous shooting star recognitions in the department. Whereas his work has provided safe building environments to countless citizens by ensuring integrity in construction. Whereas he has earned the respect, esteem, affection, and gratitude of all who have worked alongside him. Whereas he will complete a distinguished career of 38.5 years with the city of Roanoke on July 31st, 2023. And whereas the city deems it proper and appropriate to recognize and celebrate his service to the citizens of Roanoke. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Roanoke as follows. 1, City Council adopts this resolution as a means of recognizing and paying tribute to Neil Holland for his commitment to the residents of the City of Roanoke. 2, the City Clerk is directed to forward an attested copy of this resolution to Mr. Holland.
Thank you. Let me just say that I've always felt and continue to do that our most valuable assets in this city are our employees. The commitment and dedication that they give day in and day out, not a lot of fanfare, not a lot of newspaper exposure, but they just do their job. Okay, do their job. And I'm pleased to recognize Mr. Chris Chittum, who is the director, to come and have a few words, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Neil regrets not being able to be here today. Believe me, he would be here if he could, but he just had a conflict that he couldn't get out of. What a professional. This guy started that long ago and set about almost immediately learning everything he possibly can about the building trade, and what you don't see is the day-to-day where he works with people to help them find ways to comply with the code, so it's safe and it's inexpensive and fairly easy to do. So he's just we have a lot of knowledge going out the door next month, and fortunately, to his credit, he has been working hard over the past few years to position some of the folks in the department to walk into his shoes if that works out. So thank you for the resolution, appreciate that, and we'll take it on his behalf. and we will make sure we read it to him at his goodbye reception on the 31st. So I will let you all know when that is, and so we'll extend an invitation to you all for that as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So do we keep this, or? Yeah. Okay, we'll take this thing.
All right, we're gonna make what we just did to recognize Mr. Holland, we're gonna make it legal. So there is a resolution,
We moved it and we seconded it.
Resolution, we just need to call the roll.
all right? Go ahead and call the roll, Madam
All
Clerk.
right. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye. And the resolution passes, and what a deserving person. Sorry he couldn't be here, but that's a deserving person, and we always want to continue to recognize all of our employees, because that's what makes this city a seven-time All-American city, is the commitment and dedication of our employees. All right, Madam Clerk, are we down in the hearing of citizens?
Yes, sir, we are.
Do we have any citizens signed up?
We have 4 citizens, and they will have 5 minutes each.
Okay. If you would call them in the order of them signing up,
All right?
go.
Our first 2 speakers is Frida Cathcart and Owen McGuire following her. Okay, don't
Oh.
see Miss Frida, so Mr. McGuire.
Frida's here every week.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Owen McGuire. I've spoken to you before several times. I'm here today again to speak to you about the situation going on at Fishburne Park. We've been bouncing around back and forth on this issue for several months now. At the last council meeting, I wasn't allowed to speak regarding the new amendment that you all approved back at the end of July. And I just kind of wanted to address that right now. When I first saw this amendment to the contract, I was kind of encouraged because it said they were going to take 0.5 acres and it was going to be zoned ROS. Well, I was mistaken about that. That land is not going to be zoned ROS. All that 1.1 acre is going to be zoned FMU or whatever the commercial mixed-use property is. It's going to be zoned like that. What they did is they said, quote, approximately 0.5 acres will be maintained as open space with only those uses allowed under the ROS code. So that land is not protected. That land can be developed later on down the road. Yes, there'd have to be a process to go through it, but it's not protected. And as is the rest of the 15 acres that runs up the hill behind the park, that is also unprotected, that I hope one day, that can be protected. If the developers really wanted to protect that land, they could have put a conservative easement on it, conservation easement on that land, but they have decided not to do that. They want to own the whole 1.1 acres, and substantially, nothing has really changed in this contract. The whole 1.1 acres is still going to be zoned commercially, mixed use. And the other thing that changed is the city's first refusal, right to first refusal to buy the property back. Well, the city is working so hard to get rid of it, and have said, this is just excess property that we don't want, okay? So why in the world would anybody ever believe that the city would actually exercise that right? So once again, these are not substantial changes that the developers have brought forward. The land's still going to have to go through one more time to the Planning Commission. And if it gets past there, that means that there has to be a vacation of the land for public use, so the public will never be entitled to use that land anymore. And there's going to have to be a exception made to the city's comprehensive plan. That'll have to be voted on because it doesn't meet the requirements of the city's comprehensive plan for 2000, I think, to 2040. I don't know if one of the things that the developers failed to provide was reasoning why they needed this whole acre of land. And they kept saying, well, we need it for the financing. We need it for the financing. I think, I don't know if you all have ever been provided the details of the financing for them. I don't know that, okay? Maybe you have. But to my knowledge, I don't think they've ever provided that to anybody to justify why they have to get 1.1 acres of land for $10. They have addressed some of the issues, not all of them. There's a spring close by there that has to be addressed. There's not supposed to be any development within 200 feet of a spring, and that spring is very close. And there are other issues. All I'm asking is that you take these things into consideration. I know you're going to talk to the Parks and Rec Council tonight too, and I hope you listen to them. They've got some good ideas too about this situation. So the process is moving forward. We go before the Planning Commission here on August 14th, see where we go with that. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. Thank you very much as always.
Thank you.
Our next two speakers, Dr. Carl Bentley and Sharon Fritz, following Dr. Bentley.
I just hate when they put all that information out there that is not accurate. If it's accurate, fine. If it's inaccurate, I think the city manager should respond some sort of way, because otherwise that bad information gets out in the atmosphere.
Okay, I agree. I'll tell them about that. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Pardon me. Thank you for all of the work that you do to make our Star City an all-American city. And thank you for your efforts to find solutions to the problems that we face sometimes in Roanoke. I'm Dr. Carl Bentley, and I'm a taxpayer here. And I've come today because of multiple damages that one of my city properties has suffered. The appropriate address is 1001 Fairfax Avenue Northwest. And this is a duplex that I built in 2003. It serves as my second home, and it serves as a rental property here in the city. This property has been hit by vehicular traffic 4 times since it was constructed. And the most recent collision was last week on Wednesday, July the 12th, by an uninsured motorist with an undetermined amount of damage, and assessments are currently being made to find out what it's going to cost me to make repairs again. Last year, in April of 2022, a northbound motorist struck my house, causing approximately $10,000 worth of damage. Now, historically, my parents purchased this property in 1945. This property has been in my family for 78 years, and our family outgrew the house and moved to Villa Heights in 1968. The original house on Fairfax was raised in 1971, and afterwards my parents offered the land to the city to be used as a neighborhood tot lot. Noel Taylor had just joined the city council. Julian Hurst was the city manager, and our old house had never been struck by northbound traffic, but the City of Roanoke Council, or the Roanoke City Council, rejected my parents' offer, stating that the volume of traffic on 10th Street was too heavy for a neighborhood park on that corner. Now here, 50 years later, 10th Street traffic is even heavier, and now it's a truck route for 18-wheel tractor-trailer trucks. Since the 70s, modifications have been made to 10th Street, including the replacement of the 10th Street Bridge and a partial widening of the corridor, but however, in the 400 block of 10th Street northbound, it comes to an abrupt merge of 2 lanes into one just before Fairfax Avenue. The concrete curb swings around to the right in the northbound lane, and there's one inadequate sign warning motorists of the reconfiguration. Sometimes motorists do not see the sign or the reconfiguration, and they hit the curb. And the result is that vehicles sometimes somersault into my property, which is located in the 500 block of 10th Street. You might recall that a few years ago, a northbound police car hit that same curb and somersaulted into a house at 931 Fairfax, and the city had to pay for the removal of the entire house because it was knocked from the foundation and rendered no good for anybody to use. When VDOT reconfigured 10th Street in 2013, I asked for a guardrail to protect my property. But instead, VDOT installed a guardrail on the opposite side of the street to protect what was then a vacant lot. Consequently, with no guardrail, my fence has been knocked down 4 times, and my house has been damaged twice since 10th Street was reopened. That's 4 hits on a new house. Council, I realize you've got a lot to deal with. I realize that there are many issues that confront you every day, so I'd like to offer a couple of suggestions. I appeal to the council's integrity to channel my concerns to the appropriate departments for resolution. Number 1 suggestion, reinforce the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on 10th Street corridor. Number 2, install a flashing sign in the place where the 2 lanes merge into 1 lane, just north of the 10th Street Bridge. Number 3, install the guardrail that I requested 10 years ago to protect my property. Now, in this case, hope is not an appropriate strategy. Please take action before a northbound tanker truck, and I hope that it doesn't. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank the Roanoke Police Department for alerting me to this accident.
Ms. Carroll, have we not heard this before or dealt with this issue?
Not any time recently that I'm aware of. I don't know when. Dr. Bentley, when was the last accident that took place on the property? Do you know?
Last April,
Okay.
but I didn't report it.
Okay.
I didn't say anything to anybody. The person who hit the house, wasn't insured, so I just had my insurance company to file against their insurance company.
Okay. So probably the last time I think there was any kind of public conversation, it sounds like when VDOT did the upgrade for the road in the area back in 2013.
The last time I appeared before council had to do with the funeral home wanting to have access to the alley behind my house.
Okay. And what we'll do is I'll follow up with transportation so they can have a conversation and look at the kind of the 3 options that have been laid out to see what, if any of those are possible, what makes sense. Also probably talk to VDOT with it as well. So we'll follow up on it. And I've got Dr. Bentley's contact information here.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bentley.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm with Bus Riders of Roanoke. We represent the bus riders. Hi, City Council. Hi, Roanoke. How are y'all? Okay, so thank you so much for talking about the Americans with Disabilities Act today. It's the anniversary, and so on July 28th at noon, we will be at the transit station, and we'll have leaders from Roanoke ride the bus with people who are disabled, and we have some wheelchairs and disability aids that are going to be there for people to use, so that people and leaders in Roanoke can see what it's like to ride the bus when you have disabilities. And so that'll be Friday the 28th at noon, and we've had Mayor Lee and Council Member Trish White Boyd say that they're going to be there, so thank you very much. And we've also had from the transit company Dwayne, Andrew, and Karen, who said that they would be there, and we would like everyone from the transit company and from City Council to be there that day, because it is hard to ride the bus with a disability. I have one, and I take a radar bus, and so I think that'll be a very educational day. And so one thing that we didn't talk about is, okay, we have a stop assessment, and that's one thing that I need to ask y'all is, where are we at our stop assessment? Especially one stop that's bad is Valley Metro at Valley View Mall, the Walmart. That stop is really hard for people to get to, and we need a bench there, or a cover for the weather, like a bus shelter. That would be really good at Valley View. And so that's pretty much it for this month, and we're really looking forward to having people come to the ADA Day. That's July 28th at Friday at noon. And so Bus Riders of Roanoke meets the first Thursday of every month at the Gainsborough Library at 5:30 p.m. And also, they said that we're going to have a onboard surveys for people concerning what's coming up with, okay, I can't remember, but we're having onboard surveys of people who use the buses. And so I am there a lot to talk to people at the bus station. And one thing about how well it's designed is it's really easy to talk to people when you're there. And so that's something I would like to do for y'all, is to help get those surveys off with people that are at the transit station, because I'm there often and it's really easy to talk with people. So you can find us at busridersofroanoke@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last speaker, Mayor.
I just had a quick question to follow up on that for Mr. Cowell. I've heard about this Walmart bus stop before. Is there a challenge that we're trying to overcome with that?
Yes, and the singular challenge, only one challenge, but it has proven to be a insurmountable challenge so far, is securing the land that's necessary. So there had been GRTC and Valley Metro and others have been involved for over a decade in trying to secure the land. So the tenants, so Walmart, for example, is in support, but they don't own the property that is in question. And so far that has been unsuccessful. But I know that Valley Metro and GRTC continue to work on trying to, that is literally their number one priority in terms of shelters. They just have been unsuccessful so far.
Is it owned by the old
Sears
Sears people?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was, at one point it was wrapped up in the bankruptcy. That's no longer an issue. Prior to that, they just weren't interested. The mall is supportive as well, but the mall does not own that real estate. And so it just hasn't been successful yet.
And the funding was there. We had the money.
Funding is there also. That's why I said there's really just one issue, and that issue is acquisition of the property.
Is there an alternative location we could nearby?
They've looked at, they did a site study.
Yeah.
Multiple locations, and I think arrived at the best location.
Was there?
Yeah, and part of the challenge is all of that land in that area is privately owned. So the ring road that I think probably people think of as a road is actually all owned privately. It's not owned by the city. And so that creates some other challenges with the acquisition. But yeah, it is their number one priority. They just haven't been able to secure it yet.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, that concludes our hearing of citizens upon public matters. And we'll move to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda the council sets this time as a priority for citizens to be heard. All matters will be referred, and I'm reading it wrong, for our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by members of City Council. and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of the items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye. I want to call attention to 3 requests for closed meeting from Councilmember White Boyd and the city manager. The first closed meeting is to discuss a personnel matter, being the annual performance of the council-appointed officers pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 Code of Virginia as amended. The second closed meeting will be to discuss the disposition of publicly owned property located at 644 West Side Boulevard, Northwest. For discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 Code of Virginia as amended. And the third request for a closed meeting is to discuss the disposition of publicly owned property located at 1 South Jefferson Street, Southwest. For discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to 2.2-3711 Code of Virginia as amended. I need a motion.
I believe that's all been approved. Yeah. The consent agenda, Mayor. We've taken care of it.
All right, so the consent agenda is approved, and Madam Clerk, that is, from what I can gather on my agenda, my script.
That's it for
Is that just 6? It's 5. Let me go to this, because I don't have that. All right, the regular agenda has public hearings. Item number 6 is petitions and communications. And number 1 is the acceptance of the Victims Witness Program grant. And there are 2 measures, a resolution and a budget, and I will offer the resolution first.
Move the resolution. Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, could you?
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of the Victim Witness Grant from the Department of Criminal Justice Services and authorizing the execution and filing of appropriate documents to obtain such funds.
Are there any discussion on this item? All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the resolution passes. There's a budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Department of Criminal Justice Services for the Victim Witness Assistance Program, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 grant fund appropriations and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, is there any discussion by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. All right, well, the next item is reports of city officers and comments of the city manager. And I'm pleased to recognize our city manager to bring on on the briefings that are prepared.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have two briefings this afternoon. The first is a briefing as requested by Council from Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge, so they will be our first, and then following that briefing, we will have our monthly budget report coming from Brent Robertson. So with that, I'll ask Landon.
Very good afternoon, and thank you so very much for the opportunity to come and speak with council. You are so important to us, and we don't have an opportunity to let you know how grateful we are for your support on any given day. And but we do think about you often, and in terms of what you do in supporting our mission and the mission of this city and this region. What I'd really like to do, I think it's very important that you know who's doing the work. And as good as they are, they're the best destination marketing team in the Commonwealth. Y'all stand. So we wanted to bring our full-time staff here so that you all would know who they are. And they are some of the smartest people you'll ever meet. They make me look good because I always hire to my weakness. And so I do really appreciate what they do every day. Also, I'd like to recognize the city manager. Bob Cowell gives me great advice. He's on our executive committee, and he gets to see what I do on reports and everything every month. And he doesn't hesitate to call me whenever he needs me to get something done, and I'm grateful to him and his professionalism. And I also would like to recognize some members of our board that are here. If y'all would stand. I think there's several that ended up here, and we just thank you all for being here today, as well as some folks from the industry. So anybody from the hospitality and tourism industry that's here, please stand, and just thank you so much for your all support that you give us on any given day. So thank you. So our job, it's a very enjoyable job. We get to represent the city of Roanoke. We get to sell it every day. 90% of what we do is outside this community. Our job is to develop, market, and manage this destination brand. We get to tell people and define who we are, identify who we are, and why people would want to experience who we are as a destination. And I'm not going to read this because each one of you got this, but what it really boils down to is that the city of Roanoke is the aorta of this region, the very heart of this region. And everybody around us really benefits from what we as a city are doing. But we all need each other. Our job is to create visitation. And the primary reason why we do that is to fill our hotel rooms, but we're also finding even more people staying in short-term rentals. But we also want a portion of those people to live here and also move here and start businesses and work. And so we feel like we are the first state for economic development. Everyone that's inside this yellow area, because of the formula that you all have provided us, receive our marketing services for free. 1,600 businesses receive our marketing services, and we don't ask for a penny from them. And our job is to fully represent all aspects of this community, and no matter who they are. We're information brokers for the 1,600 businesses, and we go out and we market our attractions and hotels and restaurants to everybody you see there on the left-hand side. Our mission, if you look at paragraph 12 in our performance agreement, is to generate room occupancy tax. And the way that the formula works is we get about 3/8 of that, you keep 5/8, but you keep 100% of the amusement, dining, and sales tax collections. Our job is to generate money for this council. Bottom line, that should be your expectation, and that's what we try to do every day. Before we put this formula in 2013, bed tax was pretty level, as you can see by the yellow line up there on the top. It's pretty much between 4 and 4.5 million. And that was for all the 3 jurisdictions in the performance agreement. And then in 2013, yes, the only person still in here in that picture is Sherman Lee, as you can see. So it hasn't aged at all. And so this is where we all came together. When I first moved here, people say, this could never be done. Where Salem and Roanoke County and Roanoke all decide they're going to work together as one community. And I have to give a lot of credit to Senator Edwards, who patroned the bill through the General Assembly to help us make that happen. So this is our formula. And what happens is that the city sets our goals every year. And they give us an amount of money that they expect us to generate each year. And I will say that we have successfully done that every single year, with exception to the year of COVID. And that's where you see that big dip right there in terms of transient occupancy tax collections. But we should be well above 9 and approaching $10 million in occupancy tax production overall. And so if you look at the breakout, what's in the orange comes to Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge. What's in the blue goes to the city. But you can see that after COVID, that we're on a great trajectory. And here it is for all the jurisdictions. So pretty much the same pattern. So where are we in terms of the city in May of 2023? Well, our hotel revenues are up, and also occupancy. The daily sales room demand is down slightly, but we have one of our major hotel properties in downtown that has not reported this year. So I would expect that number would be up if their numbers were included in this. Short-term rentals are becoming a major part of what we are doing. Whether it be Airbnb, Vrbo, look at that, 48% of the people, 48% growth between 21-22 and 22-23 on short-term rentals. Same thing with Vrbo, which you can see a 38%. I would just say I hope that the city is collecting taxes off of all of these. We have no way of monitoring that or to really combining that with the hotels, but it is a pretty significant amount of money, and it's growing rapidly. What we're finding from both the Washington Post and also from the New York Times is that they're saying that we're going to be leveling off, and that in the third, fourth quarters that we may actually see a slight decrease in the amount of visitation that's going on nationwide. And we'll see that with U.S. travel as well. I don't believe we're going to experience that here. I think we're going to be up. I think we're going to be up pretty substantially. So I feel like we're going to be in a good position. To give you an idea of where we are with our competitors, we're at a $5.1 million budget now. But when we go out to pitch sports or conventions, this is the destinations that we see fairly often in the hallway as we're waiting to go in and make our presentation. We're grateful for this $5.1 million, and I'll tell you, if the 5 jurisdictions weren't pooling their resources together, we could not really compete effectively. So how have we done since 12-13 and compared to where we are right now? As you can see, our social media, website, all of that has just gone through the roof. And again, I give this staff all that credit because we are reaching the market out there pretty heavily. What I'd like to do is ask our Vice President of Sales and Marketing to come up and give you just a snapshot of what we're doing, especially in the Northern Virginia market. That is that's really our number one feeder market. So Deborah Wright, would you please come up?
Hello, and thank you. Virginia's Blue Ridge is a Metro Mountain adventure. We look at this as it's leading with everything that we're doing with our regional marketing. We feel like a Metro Mountain adventure really sets us apart from all of our competitors. The city of Roanoke is really the hub, the heart, as Landon mentioned, and it basically has everything that a large city has, but on a smaller scale. And then all of the other surrounding areas have all the outdoor amenities, all within close proximity. So we really do feel like this resonates with residents as well as visitors. You can see on this pyramid, we really do focus on that outdoor recreation and sports, and that is combined with our arts and culture and our events and our history. We have the craft food and beverage as well as our accommodations. So that's how we really do emphasize and market our region. Looking at our primary and secondary markets, our primary markets are in yellow. You'll see that it's the major cities in Virginia and North Carolina. And then the secondary market is in green, and for the most part, that's as it relates to Interstate 81 and the drive traffic that's coming in. So we do represent the region as a whole, but just want to make sure that you know that we have landing pages specifically for our different jurisdictions. So there is a landing page specifically for the city of Roanoke, as well as specifically downtown Roanoke. We showcase some of our signature attractions like Black Dog Salvage or Roanoke Star and Mill Mountain Star. We definitely showcase our rich arts and culture, as well as our diversity and our unique Black history. We highlight the LGBTQ+. We have a landing page here, as well as highlighting events, which is one of our top pages, as well as making sure that we promote everything on our social media. The Northern Virginia campaign that Landon mentioned, you all are probably familiar with this. We kicked off a campaign in April and June with the theme of There's Still Adventure Out There, which is again part of our Metro Mountain adventure theme. So with marketing analysis ahead of time, we really did identify what our key markets are, and you can see these here. And then how did we get that message out there? So starting with the Dulles Metro Takeover. So we were really excited to be there. And with this, you'll see kind of our messaging is that, again, we wanted people to know who we are, where we are, and then really showcase our signature and scenic attractions. So you can see that through the Dulles Airport. And then we took over the Ashburn Metro Station. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's the newest Silver Line, and it's the last stop, so that really does hit that Northern Virginia market. So you can see different examples here as well. Then we did digital live boards in all of the metro stations. We were on the side and the back of buses. We did targeted emails. We sent out 4 different targeted emails to over 1 million people. And in looking at that, we had over 258,000 people open that, which is a higher than 25% open rate, which is pretty significant. And we had 23,000 people actually come to our website. And in addition, we did a highlight of the regional partnership and had over 1,400 click-throughs to the jobs location on there. And so this is one of the things that we are starting collaboration, more collaboration with the partnership, with the regional partnership, as well as the Roanoke Blacksburg Technology Council. So you're going to be hearing more about that as we progress into this year. Back to the Northern campaign, we had paid Facebook and Instagram, social media, Spotify, which was a little bit different for us for the audio as well as video ads, and then we had YouTube and Connect TV, which is your streaming TV. Then we started doing activations. So again, as we highlight as a premier cycling destination, we actually had an activation where we had people come and do a gravel ride. This was up in Northern Virginia, and then showcased the Gravel Adventure Field Guide, as well as partnered with our team Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 and attending some of their events that they were there. So we had a booth there. So speaking of Virginia's Blue Ridge in 2024, this is actually a picture of that event in Arlington, and you can see Marlise is up there as she won first, and we also have 4th place there. But this shows you a little bit about our return on investment, really highlighting with that public relations, also identifying all the different races that they attended, the wrap for the vehicle, Swift, which is an e-sport, kind of like Peloton. You all are probably familiar with that, so that you can see the team riding, local activations as well. So this is a total of $167 million, and with this, our investment was $100,000. Virginia Tourism Corporation investment was $200,000, and they have backed up these numbers that you're seeing here. Northern Virginia campaign still with meeting planners. We're highlighting those meeting planners with an activation we had on June 21st, as well as one we're going to have next week that's going to have meeting planners, sports planners, and travel writers. So looking at some of those numbers, with meeting sales, you can see our goals, but we actually had 77 leads. We had 53 bookings with over 15,000 rooms. And we appreciate your support in funding with the ARPA funding, because I know a significant part of that is going toward incentive money to bring groups in specifically to the city. And with these 3 years that we're showing here, we're over $165,000 of incentive money, and that continues to grow. Sports, again, seeing those goals, and then we actually had 96 qualified leads, 58 bookings, and over 25,000 rooms. So the Northern Campaign was also supported by public relations. This is key for everything that we do, that it complements our marketing, and you're going to be hearing more about that. So what did this campaign do? Just in 2.5 months, basically, we could see that the traffic to the website increased 69% year over year, just in this specific market. And then you can see for paid social, organic, pay-per-click, and direct. So we could see that our advertising was working. But what does that really mean, right? So we look at this, and the visitation just in 2 months increased 10% with an increase of 10% spending, again, specifically from this marketing. So how did we get this information? We now have a program, it's called Zartico. This is kind of an industry-wide platform, and what it does is it takes your Google Analytics, your phone location tracking, Smith Travel Report, which again is tracking that hotel information, key data that's pulling in our short-term rental information, and credit card spending. So looking at this, you can see specifically where are the people coming from that are actually coming in the city. So again, these are numbers for the city for the past 12 months. And with that, you can see Norfolk, Washington, D.C., and Richmond were our top markets coming into the city. When we look at spend, we can see that Richmond actually spends a little bit more, followed by D.C. and Norfolk. Looking at overall past visitation, so we can break this up by our 5 jurisdictions, and we can see that the city of Roanoke is getting the lion's share of it, but then that is excluding downtown. You'll see downtown Roanoke is actually separated and on that 4th line. So again, they may have visited different areas, so this is not equaling to 100%, but you can see that the city, including downtown Roanoke, is getting over 50% of that market. And we can also see that based on their spending. So the city of Roanoke is getting 43% of that spending over the past 12 months. Looking at where are they spending, okay, so we can drill it into where they're spending, and we can actually even drill further than this. So you'll see that food is the number 1. But we can see that's not fast food, and it's not groceries. It's actually our unique restaurants that we have here in the city. Also, you'll see accommodations is 3rd, but that does not include short-term rental, because again, this data is coming from credit card spending, and that spending is actually done where the person resides. So that does not include that number. Looking at the average spending for these different things, you'll see accommodations is obviously the highest, $455, followed by retail and food. And then where are they going? This is key for us to see what we can do, where they're going, and what we can do to continue to increase this with retail, accommodations, outdoor recreation, food, medical, and then our arts and entertainment and events. And so as we look at this, not only is it helpful for us to see what has been done, but it's very instrumental in helping us determine where we need to go, if we need to pivot, and what we need to do. So for example, with lodging, we want to increase that lodging. So we really do want to focus on deals and packages we have, downtown accommodations, walking towards boutique hotels, things like that, that we can really highlight in that area. So moving next is public relations. I want to introduce Catherine Lucas, and she is our Director of Public Relations.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you to the Mayor Lee and to City Council. So I'm very excited to talk about public relations. When we see Roanoke mentioned in articles from Southern Living and Washington Post, it's not a lucky coincidence. It is actually the result of relationship building that takes place over time, which is the key to success for public relations. So we like to use the analogy of planting the seed. So you have the initial introduction to the travel writer at what we might call a feeder market visit. So going and meeting the writer where they work and where they live and telling them about this wonderful destination that they need to come visit and tell their own audiences about. That could also result from, sending an email pitch or meeting them somewhere else. So from there, as the seed is planted, media have a desire to learn and continue to learn about our area. They become hooked from that pitch and that initial introduction. They'll come in to our visit into our region, see how wonderful things are, and then that results in coverage. That can take weeks, months, and sometimes over a year for the really big national publications. And once we receive that coverage, people then take that coverage as a third-party recommendation to plan their vacation. So here's a little example for the amount of time that it can take and the relationship building process. I met with the author of this piece for Talk Greenville magazine in South Carolina back in November 2021. She lives in Atlanta. We went down and met a lot of writers for big publications in Atlanta. Pitched her, she told her about the area and our rich arts and culture, and she had a story that she, an angle that she thought we would fit in very well with. So once we returned to Roanoke, I shared information and pictures with her for the story, and it resulted in this really beautiful print piece that came out a couple months later that was also shared online. And then she liked the area so much and our region just has so much to offer that she decided to come back and write another piece. So she visited later in 2022. Remember, this is almost or over a year after our original meeting, gathered more information, and then went back and wrote a second article, both of which the city of Roanoke was very prominently featured in. Another example, last fall, I went up to Pennsylvania for the Mid-Atlantic Tourism and Public Relation Alliance's annual media marketplace. I had the opportunity to speak with the travel editor for National Geographic. We were just, a couple months coming off having our new second daily Amtrak service, so I told her about the idea of a car-free vacation, taking Amtrak down to the city of Roanoke, and then a month later, we ended up featured in this great article about train trips for a car-free weekend in North America. Very proud of this 8-page spread that we got in Virginia Living. You'll just see 2 pages of that spread here. This was something that, again, lots of relationship building over time. We first brought the writer into the area in July of 2021, continued to maintain our relationship by, meeting up at other trade shows and sending email pitches. He then had enjoyed Roanoke so much that he actually pitched the destination to the editor of Virginia Living magazine, who then assigned him a big destination feature. He came back down, visited again in November 22, and then 6 months later, we ended up with this great spread in Virginia Living. We also did a 9-person group media tour this past spring. We were very strategic in inviting several of the media, making sure that they were from the DMV area, since we know that is a top visitation market for us, and it paid off well. You'll see this was a live broadcast segment that aired on the Sunday that Troy, one of our writers, was in town visiting Roanoke and Virginia's Blue Ridge. So it was a wonderful segment. We got even more mileage out of it that it was featured online, and he also featured it on some additional channels where potentially viewers of additional audiences can get to see and be exposed to our destination on both his Instagram and his YouTube, people that may not have seen the DC segment when it aired live. This was also a result of our big 9-person group media tour that we hosted in the spring. As you'll notice, multiple jurisdictions. We've got both the county and the city mentioned in this piece because visitors and writers do not see jurisdictions. They don't see county and city lines. So it's kind of all one big region to them. This is an example of the benefit of going and meeting media where they are, where they live. I went up to DC this past June and did 2 different segments with for Good Morning Washington on another one of their broadcast stations. This was also featured online, and the outlet also promoted this on social media as well. These are benchmarks. These are the KPIs that we use to measure success of the Public Relations Department. So we exceeded all of our goals this year. We either hosted or went and met with in person over 150 travel writers. We generated over 350 articles about this area. We pitched almost 100, and we sent almost 180 emails pitching to media, and then that big number that you see is the amount of times that people liked, commented, shared any of our social content or any social content from articles that mentioned Virginia's Blue Ridge in the city of Roanoke. I'm not going to go through this, but this just kind of shows everything in red that you'll see is coverage that is planned or has already come out as a result of just this one 9-person media tour. So you saw back there that we hosted over 150 this year. In about 2 weeks, I'll have a very exciting announcement to share with you all about an event in Roanoke that will hopefully bring, over 50 writers to increase that number. So very much looking forward to that. But yes, lots of coverage that we have to come out. And to wrap things up, I will hand it off to Lyndon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, and also Catherine. I told you they're a great team, and they do a really, really great job. Again, where are we so far? We are up over $1 million in bed tax production over this time last year, and that is before June actually reports. So we've made money this year. Here's a big announcement that we'll hopefully be able to share with everybody. Right now, we've got a $10 million request on Governor Youngkin's desk to be part of USA Cycling. What USA Cycling has done after we hosted the junior amateurs, that the CEO of USA Cycling came here and asked if we would consider having a portion of their headquarters moved from Colorado Springs to Roanoke into this region, and that would be for the road and gravel headquarters. And then also, they've asked us for the next 5 years to host the top level Pro-Am race, which would be the highest level race for, and that would actually include Olympic trials for Paris in 2024, and most likely Olympic trials for 2028. And then we also would get the gravel championship starting in 2 years for a total of 4 years. That would bring in about 2,000 people per racing event. And then also the USA Cycling would be hosting clinics, including training for Tour de France here as well. So this is exciting. Virginia Tourism's been working with us, just completed their analysis for Governor Youngkin, and said that as we have presented it, that it would produce somewhere in the order of directly of state and local taxes about $11 million. So the state will actually make $1 million more just by them saying yes. The only challenge we've got is that we've got until July 28th to tell USA Cycling that we would like them to be here. We've been working very closely with Roanoke Regional Partnership, and that's what I would really like to share, is that we're working together with economic development unlike we've ever done before. I mean, hand in glove. John and Hall and I talk at least 2 or 3 times a week, and we're trying to coordinate our activities. And as Deborah mentioned, we're looking at a joint campaign between the Regional Partnership, the Technology Council, and us. And we look forward to announcing a little bit more about that initiative. But before we go too far, I've got to make sure I don't get in front of the city manager over here, because we've got to present it to him in August as part of the executive committee evaluation. So in all sincerity, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to come. I would like to be able to come more often and update you all on what we're doing. And just appreciate the opportunity to do that, and being responsible for your money is very important to us. We know we're in a fiduciary trust position, and how we spend that money is something that we should be accountable for. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could just add one additional thing, because I think it's important with this, is so the Northern Virginia campaign that was highlighted on several of the slides, all of that campaign was generated by the folks that are here. The significance of that, so all of it, the photos, the print copy, all of it. So the significance of that was that every dollar then that was identified for that program went into actually the stuff that you saw deployed, rather than spending those dollars and hiring a marketing firm to develop that material and then doing those pieces. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because when that was shared with the executive committee, I think it was, it made quite an impression with the quality of the work that was done and recognizing that that was done all by staff of EBR. So just wanted to acknowledge that piece.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One last slide that I failed to mention is if you want to see over a 10-year period of time, and this is Virginia tourism's number. Our industry has grown, despite COVID, from 703 million up to well over $1 billion. I would say that in all likelihood will be between 1.1 and 1.2 billion when the report comes in for 2023.
Well, great report. Let me just mention something, Landon, and then I'll go to my colleagues for any questions or comments. That U.S. Cycling Pro Road National Championship, which includes the USA Cycling Team Olympic Trials, that's big time. That's national coverage because those that come in here are competing to get to the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024 and then in LA in 2028. That puts Roanoke in the spotlight nationally because that's going to get a lot of coverage. So I just want to commend the work there. I'm hoping the governor will do what he needs to do in order to make this happen. So I'm very anxious and hoping that will work out.
Fingers crossed. Yes, sir.
All right, I'll open the floor up now. I'll go to Ms. Trish White-Boyd, and then I'll go down the line. Anybody?
And I may need to come back, Mayor. I just want to ask this quick follow-up since it's based on what you just said. So if you do not get a response from our governor by July 28th, Lyndon, does that mean that USA Cycling will pass us up and move on to someone else, or do we have any other options if they don't respond? Because I know you had a deadline for them.
Thank you for that question. We are working as if this is going to happen. And so we have to put a pretty detailed response proposal back to USA Cycling. And so we're working on that as we speak in anticipation that we're going to get that money. If by the 28th we don't have it, then we will ask USA Cycling for an extension before they go to any other cities, because Minneapolis, Fort Worth, Louisville, and other cities have already said they want it, and I'll just say, it's ours to lose.
So they want to be here?
They want to be here, yes.
So is there an application process that goes along with this? Since there are other cities that are involved, I imagine typically there's a bid for an event. You typically have a bid in by an expiration date, and then that's when they make their decision. So that sounds a little bit different in this case. Could you explain that a little bit?
We've been told verbally that the response needs to be by the 28th, and I think that if we need the flexibility, given the big ask that's here, that Brandon Quirk, who's been here twice in the last month, might be willing to do that. It's certainly our hope that he would, but I'd just prefer that Governor Youngkin say yes today, and just go ahead and let's get to work. And it's going to take all of us pulling on this like we've never done before, but I am absolutely confident that we can make it happen.
Are you done with your questions? I just had to follow up.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll come back to that.
All right, you got a question?
I think Peter has another.
Well,
and with that $10 million, is that something that's coming from the budget, or is that something that's coming from a contingency fund like we would use with the city manager? How definite is that $10 million, given that there is no budget right now for the next 2 years?
It's our understanding, at least from what we've been told, that the governor actually has, in my discussions with Senator Edwards, that the governor does have resources already in his budget that he could commit to that. So what it really boils down to is all of us asking and letting him know that this is not just for Roanoke and for this region, Virginia's Blue Ridge. This is for the state. This is for Virginia itself. The whole Commonwealth will benefit from this. Yeah. And we see an economic development mission into the EU that we have already been offered the athletic area or headquarters in Paris for any kind of event we would like to host. And so if we're able to make that happen, hopefully we can recruit some companies to come in here and create some more employment.
Excellent. So I'd like to go back to the presentation that we received this evening. One of the metrics that I saw that was placed on here, and it's similar to what we see here, is that it's from 2011 to 2021. It's a lot more helpful if we're able to see metrics of every year and see trend lines on these things. Sure. When looking at, I think it was, social media is up 257% from 2011. Well, yes, social media itself was, maybe at that point back then, that many people were on it. So it would be really helpful to see what are the actual year-to-year changes and give some context as to how those are compared to in general. One of the things I didn't see very much of in this was key performance indicators. What are the things, I say this in almost every meeting, metrics, metrics, metrics. The more data we have, the more we can say this is working, this isn't working. Sure. And, I didn't see any real key performance indicators in this or that were brought out in a trend way. What are the key performance indicators that y'all look at for success? Because the reason we're here today is because every year you're supposed to be coming here and saying, this is why we're worth the investment. And so I'm not seeing a key performance indicator that you guys use year in and year out to say, we are doing this much better this year than we are last year. And if I missed something, then please fill me in.
Well, and I will admit that what we did is that we could have used another hour to go through this. And so what I would encourage you to do is to look in your folder, and you will find what is called a benchmark report.
Is it in this?
Yes, it should be in there.
And also, would that include targeted audiences? I was going to ask that.
Well, what we have is our marketing plan, and then you will see that what the city manager, what we send to the city manager each month is what's called the May 2023 benchmark report, and you'll see a whole bunch of numbers there that indicate everything from qualified leads for meetings, for sports, public relations, the number of partnership, bed tax, and a whole host of other things, including some key things on the back. You'll also see in the June report as well, but the June report isn't totally complete because we have to wait until the end of July in order to get the entire, numbers to us, especially the bed tax collections. So these are industry standard measures that we report to the board. This is what they approved and said that they wanted to see. The other thing is that the city does create the goal for us for bed tax. And so we're told each year what we have to do in order to make the budget, not only for the city, but for Roanoke County and for Salem. We've only missed it one time for the city of Roanoke, and that was the COVID year. We did miss it a second time for Roanoke County, and literally had to pay them back $23,000 because we didn't make the goal.
If I may, I can take your word at it, but I would like to see those numbers. Those should be in the presentation to us that we've received as to what those numbers are. What is the city asking for this year? Have we met it? How far did we miss it during COVID? I mean, we are the biggest stakeholder in VBR, and we are the seven folks here, well, minus Vivian tonight, but we have to make decisions on whether this is good for the city or not, what we want to see going forward, and whether we want to be a part of the partnership going forward. And when we're not given full information on a presentation like this, I think it's a little bit worrying. I would like to know, yes, there's a benchmark report. I can go and print out a lot of data, but what are the very specific things that you guys are working towards at VBR? Is it we want to get more of this target audience, or we want to have this much tax increase going on each year? Those are things that I'm not getting from this presentation. What I'm getting from this is what's going on this year. not this is what's been going on for the past 10 years and how we're going to do better or how we're going to do worse or how we're going to change those things. A strategic plan is great, but it needs to have some way to measure.
Right.
Otherwise, what are we here for? I mean, if we can't measure, there's another thing that was in there was, you talked about how many leads there are and how many you got. Well, what was the conversion rate? Is there a reason why there wasn't a good conversion rate? There's a lot of data here and this tourism is all about data, right? You got to choose what market you're going to go to. You have to choose how much money you're going to spend here and there. And I'm just wondering where this data is coming from because it hasn't been presented to us tonight in a way that shows us what's going on with VBR as in relation to is this an economic benefit for us?
Well, I think that's a fair question, and one thing I will tell you is that we're totally transparent. If there's data not being reported, we've got it. We can show you. We'll be happy to show you. But what we want to know is what it is that you're looking for. The most important thing is to know that we are generating the taxes necessary for you all to support your programs. And we take that very seriously in terms of the bed tax and dining tax, et cetera, because we know we are the primary stimulator for what goes on there. And really in our benchmark reports, you'll see the number of journalists that we bring in and write stories about us. That impacts the marketplace. The number of people that go to our website and shop us, that impacts what their impression is of us and whether they're going to come or not. But the most important thing is that we have the tools necessary to show you, just as we did with Northern Virginia. That was one market. We can show you multiple markets in terms of who's coming and in what volume. And we've got it in terms of credit card receipts, et cetera. We've got a very sophisticated group of people and tools here that we can slice and dice the data whatever way you would like.
That's not the question. The question is, what are the key performance indicators that you, as leader of this organization and those that are around you, have come up with to create, to say that we are being successful or we are not?
That's right.
What are those key performance indicators?
There are 3 performance indicators that we report to the city that's required by the budget office, and that is the qualified leads, that is the number of articles and performance that we have on that, and our website traffic. So that's what we've been asked by the city of Roanoke to report every year. We've not been asked anything else until this point. Okay, but that's what the city's budget office asks us to report every year, and that's what we do. And then we also talk about the tax collections as well. So if the city wants more required stats, we can do that. We can provide the stats, but we provided exactly what the city has requested of us on any given year.
And that is excellent that you have put those in, but that's not what the question is. The question is, what are you as an organization doing to improve? What are your key metrics? What do y'all think is, you're the tourism experts, not us.
Right.
And so, that's great. We have qualified leads, articles. I could put a ton of money behind articles and put that number up. What I want to know is, what is the goal of your organization next year? Is it to, increase tax revenue by $1 million? It's not always about what we want. It's what you as an organization are doing. We help fund your organization, but we want to know what is it that you are wanting to do. What are your goals for the next year?
We will have those benchmarks as we normally do. We will put them together.
I'm not asking about the benchmarks. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, hold on a minute. I would just like to, because you took a moment of my time. Can I just interject?
Absolutely.
So, Landon, so you're saying it would be easy enough for us to come up with our city manager, because they set the goals, right?
Sure.
So if we were to sit down with our city manager and come up with some key performance indicators, or work with Mr. Vollison on his questions or whatever, you can come back, because you said you can slice it and dice it any way we want.
Sure
So
can.
I think that if we would allow you the opportunity to formulate these questions and these concerns, and then present them to the city manager, he can then present them to you, and you can come back to us at some point in time and present that data?
More than happy to do
Okay,
that.
okay.
And the city manager is your chairman, isn't it?
Well, he is on the executive committee, and I report to him.
And I think we need to be clear, because I think there's two different questions, which I think answers can be provided to both of those, because one of those is what we ask of a city. So when we do our budget, when you all do your budget each year, you set an expectation of what the return on the tax revenues would be.
Right.
You've done that this year. I think this year it was almost $400,000 was expected to be increased in VBR's funding. So that was in the budget. As a part of your budget, you also identified just a small collection of performance measures that you request to be provided. Those are the ones that Landon had alluded to. So if we want to expand, and this could be true for anybody that we're funding, if we wanted to expand those performance measures, that's the piece that you're talking about,
Yeah.
Councilmember. The other part of it is what Councilmember Rollison's talking about, which is, so the board of VBR actually crafts, and this is the board that represents all of the jurisdictions which fund VBR, not just the city, crafts its future vision. What are the goals of VBR? What are the targets for those? So there's two different, and again, I think Landon can provide both of those. I just want to make sure there are two different kind of asks in that with it. So if I understand correctly, based on the two different questions.
That is correct. I'm more asking of what the organization is doing. I mean, we've had this organization for over 10 years, and there's no key performance indicators that we've been looking at every year to say, hey, how are we doing? What are we doing this better than we have been? I mean, that's the whole goal of this.
Sure.
So it's about the organization. I can understand, taxes and all that. I'd love to see more data, and I'm happy to work with the city council and the manager to get more numbers out of this. But the problem that I'm seeing here is that you should have something right now that says this is what we're trying to do. The only key performance indicators I saw were the ones in public relations. And then I have a lot of questions about some of the numbers that we're seeing in here. Like in the public relations, we had a PR value of $153 million, which is the majority of our return on investment from VBR. How is that found? How is that determined?
I think that what we expect to do is when we receive more money each year, there should be more performance. And so these benchmarks are put into place based off the amount of revenue that comes in from the jurisdictions. For example, in the last 2 years, we have not had near the revenue coming to us because of the impact of COVID. So of course, the benchmark numbers, which are standard in the industry, okay, those benchmarks did not just come up from something that I decided to generate. Those come from Destinations International, and that's how all destination organizations end up functioning. So we're operating in the industry standards. We also operate in best practices. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we have always prided ourselves in is being transparent. And so when our governmental partners ask us for something, we are more than willing to provide it. To my knowledge, and the city manager can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have provided this government exactly what it's requested up to this point. So if there are other expectations that council would like to receive, we'll be more than happy to work with the city manager to get that to where you want it. And so I think that is the fair thing. I mean, it's one of those things where I've walked in here, we've got good news to report. We've got good news to report, okay?
We don't know because we don't have any trend lines to tell us.
The numbers will tell you that. I mean, look at bed tax collections in your chart. Yeah, it was going up and then it went down with COVID and it's on its way back up. Mm-hmm. That just doesn't happen by itself, okay? So, again, we'll be willing to work with the city manager to provide those measures that you're looking for.
Okay. I have other questions as well. You made an allusion to amusement dining sales tax. How is that measured as to what your impact is on those taxes when you don't collect them?
We do that through Zartico and through our data programs.
So they have our tax revenues that we've been pulling in from those things?
Well, we can show you from a visitation standpoint what's being generated in each one of the jurisdictions.
You can tell us the rooms, but you can't tell me all the dining, sales, and amusement taxes.
I can tell you from a dining standpoint what the number is and what's generated through Zartico.
Okay.
It's the first I've heard this, Councilman.
I mean, these are things that are in your presentation.
Yeah, I understand that.
I would like to know where the numbers come from. I'm not here to just be told something and accept it. You know, again, where did that PR value come from? That was part of the question, was what does that $153 million value come from?
We have a program, what's it called, Catherine? Cision is the name of the program that computes that.
Okay.
It's an industry standard software.
I'll yield to let other folks
All
go
right.
right now.
All right, any other questions? All right, Mr. Pretty.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. I only really had one question, which I think was answered, recognizing that so much of this falls into the budget process that we do annually. But Landon, I just want to say thank you for bringing your whole team here, Catherine, who I've met with before, for this immense report and the large presentation. Thank you for your partnership, what you're doing to leverage our natural assets and help our small businesses, and look forward to that partnership in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
I think Mr. Crowley, Vice Mayor.
Thanks,
I think I
Landon.
just want
Thank you all for being here today, for taking time out to share the work that you're doing. This information is overwhelming, and I think it partly for me feels overwhelming because we haven't heard all of this in a while. So one thought I have is whether it's in written form, which would be fine, or to allow us some time to catch up, if we could have like a biannual update, I mean, that would be really helpful. I had no idea of the, I mean, I knew you were doing intentional marketing in different areas of the region, but to know the depth of that and the strategy behind that, and I think it was on the slide, well, the breakdown on the VBR 2024 cycling team, to see that breakdown was really helpful to me because that begins to lay out not only what the goals are, but how they're being met and exceeded, and what the return on our investment as a city is. I
Yes.
understand that we're one partner of many, and I also understand that it's important to us to know how our city is being promoted within the larger framework, and that we're also part of a region. So all of those work together well. I did have a question, a couple of questions, just more of curiosity. The Trailblazer ad with the, I don't know what else to call it other than that. You know what I'm talking about with it shows up in the movie theaters, and it was launched a couple years ago.
The trail
Setter ad.
Yeah.
Trail Setter ad. I mean, when that first broke, I was like, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And then I thought, and just through the years, how do we replicate that to also tune into our other assets as a city? So I love that we're a cycling. I love that we're the epicenter for that. And I, if I need to call Governor Youngkin, whom I don't know personally,
Please do.
and vouch for him, vouch for this work. It's so critical that we be able to land something like this. I also know that we have these other incredible assets, and Deborah alluded to those in your presentation. So I'm eager to hear how through this kind of relationship marketing and local relationships, I love that we've got the partnership with the region, we're working with the regional partnership with RVTC and Verge. I hope we're working with local economic development offices. I would love to hear more about what the strategy is this year and maybe in subsequent years. And this is not just a challenge to you, but to the board.
Sure.
What is the strategy for each locality within the partnership and region? Because I think each locality has its unique aspects and
Sure.
assets. If that doesn't exist, is there a way to make that exist? Because I think that would help us better understand some of the return on investment. But I'm just curious if you or staff could give me some examples of how economic development, arts and culture, education and livability are being, are part of the effort that's going out. And some of that showed up on the website. Clearly, some of that showed up in the articles that Catherine alluded to. Can you talk a little bit more about your strategic approach to those other critical assets?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I think it's a great question. Virginia's Blue Ridge, we say we're Roanoke in Virginia's Blue Ridge, we're Salem in Virginia's Blue Ridge. Each one of these jurisdictions have their own unique brand. You know, Salem's real quick to tell you they're the city of champions. And so we try to put forth what's great about each one of the jurisdictions, but we also do it as a whole, because we know that we tell people if you don't need a ski slope, we pretty much have it in this region, and we really do. And so the greater variety that we can market in our feeder markets, the greater the likelihood that we can beat our competitors, which that's what we're thinking about all the time, is Asheville and other mountain vacation destinations. What can we do to differentiate ourselves from them so that they make us their first choice to come here and visit? And so that's one of the key things that we do. And so we need to promote the arts, and we do. We need to promote our symphony and all the events that we have. The number one thing on our website that people look at is our festivals and events. And that in itself is what brings in a lot of people, which is really, we do a good job at that. It's really great. And so, yes, it's time that we look at strategic planning from the standpoint of how does what we do end up impacting the generation of jobs in other industry, or bringing in workforce is really key. And so, for the first time, the Roanoke Regional Partnership and the Technology Council, we're literally working right now on our first ever joint campaign. And to kind of give you an idea, that's never been done anywhere in the Commonwealth. We're the first in the Commonwealth to ever do this, because we do see that working together makes a lot of sense. And so, can't wait to show you all about that. But that in itself is being strategic in terms of how we position the whole region, and with Roanoke as the center of that region.
Let me, if I may, I want to add to Vice Mayor's comments. I want to thank you all for the work you've done with the HBCU schools, especially the CIAA conference that brings their championship game to the Salem Roanoke area. And you had to compete to get that. Nobody gave you that, because that's the oldest and probably the largest HBCU conference in the country. And to get that, I mean, you beat out cities like Charlotte, North Carolina, Durham, Richmond, Norfolk, who's not in that conference, but it's there. But by doing that, you brought schools that students have been able to see their enrollment increases. The schools come, they bring their bands with them, they bring, sometimes their educators with them to help kids get in school. There are a lot of kids that enroll that. So we talk a lot, and the country is talking a lot about HBCUs. Not us, this country. But I think the work that you all did to get them here and to sign a contract to keep them coming back, they have, I mean, that took something. So I'm proud of that marketing, that strategy that you used to do that and to keep them coming back. And they'll be back again well, they'll be here the 20th, which is Thursday, because I'll be talking to them, thanking them for coming back here to the Roanoke, Salem area, really coming in, bringing people as far away from Bowie, Maryland, that will come to our hotels, Fayetteville, North Carolina. All those things, those are things that make a difference. And as I see, in your planning and the things that you do, that's made a difference, especially in this community with kids going to school saying you can be educated. Everybody, everybody's not going to get in UVA or Virginia Tech, but these kids got a chance to get to school, and they've done that. They've been doing that for years, and I appreciate that effort you make, because that's a competitive process. And we bring in TV, ESPN or some years, they come, they're showing this area, the valley, the hotel people, so a lot of good things are going. So going on, I appreciate that because it's making a difference on a lot of people, and it's putting us on the map.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I like. As mayor, I like to be on the map for good things, man. For good things. I like to get on the map this year in Roanoke and Salem, and they come and people are interested in that, and they follow it, and that's a good thing. So thank you guys for your efforts. We'll be back. They'll be back Thursday, and we'll be back November for the CIAA championship game. And that means that whatever schools win that, they'll be here. And I love to go over to Salem and see a whole side of the stadium red and blue on the other side. So those are some good things. That was ironic, red and blue. But anyway, that was a good thing that we do. So I wanted to mention that to you.
Well, thank you, and we have a great relationship, thanks to you and your help as well. Great relationship with CIAA, having the football championship here, and also the volleyball and the cross-country and the bowling. They love coming here, and we love rolling out the red carpet for them to be here as well.
So, well, I'll just be real quick, because I know we need to move on. I just wanted to say, this is a lot of information, and with the economic impact, we really do need some additional discussion. But I was going to ask our city manager if it's possible for you all to participate in our annual retreat, or well, semi-annual, I think we have two. Is it possible, Mr. Cowell, that they could come and be a part of our retreat so we can have some discussion about some of the key indicators
Sure,
and some things that we
Yeah,
might want, and some things they might want to talk about?
Yeah, we certainly can do that. We're starting to formulate the agenda for that meeting. I do want to say that, to date, the two objectives that VBR has in their plans and what the board evaluates is room demand and room tax collection, period. So all the discussion regarding economic development is relatively new, as Landon has mentioned at the last executive committee meeting. We actually talked about, as we work on the next strategic plan, being much more intentional about economic development being a part of it. So I say all that to say that there are likely to be those kinds of measures already in place and established for room demand and room tax collection, less so for economic development because it's a new piece that they're really focusing in on as they kind of evolve forward. But yeah, we can talk about a way in which to incorporate that piece. I'd have to think with you all about how we fit that into the broader conversation we're having on the strategic plan, but certainly there's that opportunity. And the last thing I was going to mention too is another way we could do this too is you all will recall at the time you all do your budget approvals, you'll have budget submissions come in from the airport, budget submissions come in from the Solid Waste Authority and others. So we certainly could have at that same time of the year VBR come forward, share with you what their proposal is for the year in use of the money that's being provided. And then again, you could do that later in the year as kind of an annual report on how we did. So that's another way to fit that in.
I would personally like to have a conversation with them so that we can work out what those expectations are and how they can come up with that information for us, so that we're all on the same page. And then they would, come to us every year or once a year, whatever, with the information that we're both expecting them to have. So I think it would be better to have a conversation first rather than submit some things. Because like Landon said, there's still a lot of information that they weren't able to cover, and I'm going to stop for the sake of time.
Well, let me just say, we've got, you recognize this, McCall, as we study the strategic planning meeting, those some 2 full days of what we're talking about
Might
now.
be 3 now.
3. 3 what?
I said it might be 3 now with my request.
Well, that's a lot. We got to be. I just want to make sure, because after each session, I get comments from council saying we didn't touch this and we didn't do that and we didn't talk about this. So we got to be careful how we load up on all these issues.
And what I'll do if it's okay with the council is I will kind of add this into the consideration that when I float out to you all sort of what the agenda is looking like. So for example, it might be in the interest of the time that you have, it might be that the council discusses among themselves of the expectations or what they're looking for out of VBR, rather than at that point a presentation by VBR about those. That would be an example of a way that you could abbreviate that, have them come back at a later briefing or something. But we can talk certainly more about that once you know what the full kind of spectrum of opportunities for the agenda are.
All right, Ms. Pretty.
Thank you, Mayor Lee.
Usually, I guess I'll get in for a first question.
Oh, well, I didn't see, I looked down.
No, I did, I was just waiting, I'm patient, I don't interrupt, but you was going to be, we were ready to go back around for the second time, and I just wanted to get my first time in, if you don't mind, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, because they're going to keep talking, and I won't get in, and then we'll be done.
But I looked that way.
Yeah.
Put your hand out.
But that's, I'm just going to do
I'm
this.
looking one time and then
I'll just
back.
stand up, because I'm the
Okay.
shortest one here, so I'll just, so anyway, thank you, Mr. Howard, for your presentation. It was very comprehensive. And most of the stuff that I wanted to say has been said, even what Bob had just said. The only question I have is, when you have what has been asked of by Mr. Volosin here, is any of that presented to the board? When you report to your board, any of the information that he was referencing, is that given to the board?
What we do is that we go to our board of directors. We have 40 people on our board, and so we have asked first the executive committee, what would you like to see? And so we used to have multiple, staff reports and that kind of thing, and they asked me to pare it down to certain measures that they are looking for.
Right.
And so the benchmark report that you have is what the board told me twice, and the executive committee 3 times, that this is what they want to see reported on a monthly basis. And so we felt like that we were doing that, at least the input we were getting back from the board that's appointed for us, we thought we were delivering on that.
And some of the members on your board that serves on your board is appointed by the council to represent the city.
Yes, there are 5 members of Roanoke City Council appointees that are on our 40-member board, and yes, they do have input.
And just for transparency, and just to show that there is no conflict, they all serve as volunteers on the board, and they're not paid.
That is correct.
Right. And for clarity and transparency's sake, Mr. Velosa's husband serves on that board.
That is correct.
Which is Malcolm Quigley, I believe.
That's true.
So if he needs any additional information that he seeks, he has someone in his home that can give him that. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Pretty.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. I forgot to say something earlier, and I came up with a new question. First, I'm sad I haven't got to meet everyone in your group. I'm so sad that Catherine Fox has moved on from your organization. That is who I worked with most, rather than you, Senator Edwards' office, and she was doing a wonderful job. I can't imagine how many people you had to hire to fill her shoes. Top of that, so it's roughly this time last year that I remember something coming up in the news in New River Valley about their tourism agreement with their organization. Could you speak to what would be some of the, well, I'm not sure that you'll have pros, but what some of the cons would be for Roanoke to remove themselves from that kind of agreement? And then I regret, you didn't provide us with a copy of it today.
What, the agreement?
Well, what the agreement is?
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Councilman Volson had given us a copy on June 5th at the end of the closed session, but I can't find it with me today. Well, my question's more for Landon and for Bob. Of everything that's been discussed today, is there anything that needs to be changed in that agreement in order for this to hold, or for certain metrics to be sought, or is the agreement fine as it's drafted currently?
Well, I think the most important thing is that in order for us to do business, and this is what I found when I moved here first of all, is that we were only funded 1 year at a time. And so we would literally put in a budget request, and then we would find out in June what that budget would be. And so if you've got events like USA Cycling, Ironman, or any healthcare conference, we're working on a healthcare conference, series of healthcare conferences coming up over the next 3 years. We have to be able to commit not only for this coming year, but for 2 and 3 and 4 years out. And so that's what our customers expect us to be able to do, is that we've got to be able to know that we've got the resources necessary to put in bids, or put in to pay for a reception for a doctor's convention, or whatever it might be, that where we're trying to compete against other destinations. So we get those calls often, in terms of how do we make a difference in getting a piece of business booked. And so it is essential that we have this evergreen contract or a contract. I will tell you that when I first got associated with this and Senator Edwards started working with us, is that the city of Roanoke put the bulk of the money into our budget, and the complaint I was hearing is that the other jurisdictions were getting benefits and weren't putting in their fair share. And so now I can say without question, by formula, that they're putting in their fair share. And when it comes to our customers, they don't see county lines and city limits. There may be a tournament in Salem, and the bulk of the people may end up staying in Roanoke. So what we have to do is we balance that out with how we work with the jurisdictions so that we can keep that pipeline of business coming in constantly. So by not having Roanoke in that formula, I think the whole thing would fall apart, and we would go back to what we were back in 2009.
And Councilmember Purdy, if I
Yes.
may, also on in reference to the agreement, as you all recall, a couple meetings ago, you asked me to get with Landon and the executive committee of the board to inquire about updating the agreement, which I think is at least 10 years old at this point. And we did that. We talked about it at the last executive committee. Without exception, all of the partners agreed that it was time to revisit the agreement. The agreement is signed by all of the partners, and so that will be a conversation that the executive committee has as we move forward with it. And then I'll give one anecdotal example of kind of the question. So using the information that Landon presented at the end relative to the $10 million ask of the state. So that ask originated on a Saturday morning where myself, the county administrator in Botetourt County, the county administrator in Franklin County, and the county administrator in Roanoke County, all came down to USA Cycling, the event that was taking place on that Saturday morning, met with the executive director, and by that afternoon, they were starting to formulate the ask that has now been presented to the governor. If we were doing that on our own, I am confident it would be a non-starter for political reasons as well as practical. The event takes place across multiple jurisdictions. So that's just one kind of anecdotal example that's very recent, whereas that regional partnership and agreement is what gives us entry into those kinds of efforts as we move forward.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Landon. I just want to make sure that the message that comes out of today is that just, well, at least personally, how proud I am of the work that the board is doing and how expect this council would like more details, but it is the good work that you all are doing, all of the revenue that is being brought in, that I think points to why we're deserving of this, hopefully, $10 million from the governor, so we can have more economic development in our region.
Thank you.
I yield. Well done.
Mr. Bowles.
So just a few more questions for you. I'll be quick because I know we have taken up quite a bit of time on this. My first question is, what is the strategy for conference, bringing more conferences to the Roanoke area? We know that, one of the best ways to do that is filling up the Hotel Roanoke as often as possible. What is VBR's strategy for getting more conferences to be here in the city?
Well, we go through a market analysis each year, and we worked closely with our hotel partners and basically find out where their need periods are. And then we look at, certainly the Virginia Society of Association Executives they rotate from one end of the state to the other, so we will make sure that we are booking those meetings and instead of them going to the homestead, for example. And so we also are in the process of developing a strategy towards healthcare meetings and our support of the Research Institute and also with the medical school. We feel like there's some great opportunities there. That's where a lot of investment has gone in terms of the healthcare hub that we're building here. So it's key that we end up bringing more people with that expertise here so that we can tell our story. So that's just really two strategies among many that we use to book meetings here. And I will tell you, the big disadvantage that we have right now is that we need more space.
I was just about to ask, what can we help with
do not
that?
have adequate space,
Yeah.
and we could end up booking a lot more business if we had more rooms in downtown and had more space. We're aware of several meetings that can't come here anymore because they have outgrown what we have. And that kind of breaks my heart when I hear that.
I know that tourism infrastructure is something that I think we really need to build up, and so I appreciate that comment. And
Sure.
I know we have that Roanoke Conference Center ad hoc committee. Hopefully, some good news will come out of that, and we can continue to expand on that. My next question is, how much of the funds generated from the Roanoke City, which is about $1.5 million annually, are spent on marketing Roanoke?
All of it.
The city itself, not all of our partners and everyone
Well,
else.
it's actually more than 1.5 million.
Okay.
You're now looking at 1.9 million. We market Roanoke as a whole with the region. And part of that is because we position ourselves as a metro mountain adventure. So we get people to come and stay in downtown Roanoke and then go up to the James River and canoe or kayak or go out to McAfee's Knob. So that's the key to how we market, is that you have to have a place to stay. You have to have your restaurants, and then you have to have your activities as well. And so it is absolutely essential that everything we do markets with Roanoke as the core of that.
My next question is,
Mr. Wilson,
very quick. These are pretty, to the point.
Okay.
You can be more succinct in your answers if you'd like. What are the written promoted diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines? Looking at a lot of the photos, the diversity doesn't look so great on the board, and I'm just wondering if you guys have a focus on that since we are a diverse community.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion is key to what we do. Everybody is welcome to come to Roanoke and to this region from A to Z. And so what we do in terms of how we market starts with our team. If you look at our team right here, we're pretty diverse. And what I have found is that diversity gives us the best answers and the best solutions to market solutions to go after various targets that we go after. So it's a very vibrant marketing. It's great to see them work in terms of how they get their messaging together and go after those targets.
Okay. And my last question is, why do Salem and Roanoke County have their own tourism boards along with VBR?
The tourism positions that they have there are more for development than anything else. And so what will happen is that the tourism person in Roanoke County is actually putting on events at Explore Park, for example. And the same thing is true in Salem. Kerry Harvey Cutter is part-time, and he works to generate the fair every year. And so that's a major part of what he does. So it's literally, they are part of developing what has already been in place now for a while. They have to have someone that's going to be, making sure that the portalet's in the right place. So that's not what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes all of the questions we have, and thank you.
Thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak to you, and we look forward to the next time we can get together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the staff coming in.
And all your
Thank you.
staff, thank you guys.
Madam Clerk, are we down to page 8, item recommended for action?
No, we got the June budget report.
One more briefing.
Sorry.
We got the city manager.
It's a fast briefing.
Oh, the budget, we still on the, okay, Bob.
Yeah,
Yeah, we still have the budget briefing.
30 questions with this.
And then unfortunately, better or worse, I actually do have a few comments at the end, but they'll be fast.
They'll be fast.
Yeah.
I've got lots of questions for Brent now, too.
I've got the revenue analyst here with me today, so I'm ready for whatever comes. So, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Thank you for having me this afternoon, and I will try to be fairly brief. This is sort of a special financial statement presentation, and then it's the magic time for accountants and everyone when the year ends and the audit begins. I believe Jason said I had to open this up. How do I get
escape out of that?
escape out? Not use false technology. Maybe it's here.
Yeah, it's all the way at the top, I think.
This one? Okay. Yes, as I was saying, here is our June statements that come off the system. It will probably be somewhere around the 1st of October before these numbers settle out finally. That's the complication of a governmental audit. But all in all, once again, I'll begin the conversation with saying I think the results of our operations through this part of the year has been up to our expectations, exceeded them slightly. As you recall, we did make an amendment to the budget last month where it recognized some of our additional revenues. Those have been reflected in this report you see, so the current budget numbers have been adjusted for that amendment that council approved. As we go down the list, just kind of to point out a couple of things of interest, and please interrupt with any questions you may have. Excuse me. As we look at real estate, you see that we're right at 101. The only thing there I want to mention with the times we're in and everything, the collection rate was slightly off this year, a little lower. We still ended up with a bit of a surplus, not as much as we had expected, but I think that's something we have to focus on. And I know the revenue, Jason and the revenue department will be looking at those elements of the real estate to see kind of how this shook out. So not really concerning, but it's something we're going to look at. But you see, we have made budget with that this year. As you go down a little bit, you see about 3 lines, you see the public service tax. That is showing 51%. However, that's broken down into a couple of pieces. Those are the, how do I describe those, Bob? It's the quasi-public utilities that pay their real estate and personal property to the localities they serve through this public service tax. It's what is the phone companies, the railroads, I believe, things like that. We are waiting still on the business personal property component of that. Usually comes in June. It's running a little late right now. So general property taxes, I think, exceeded our expectations. As you look at the other local taxes, you see that we are a little below in sales tax. However, that is 2 months behind. You add about 17% in the straight line kind of look on a monthly basis, and we should hit budget right on. Consumer utility tax in the same way. We are waiting for one final large one for AEP actually to come in, usually in month 13. As you look down a little bit, the cigarette tax is one I just highlighted because that's not going to make budget, and I think we're happy about that. I think that's kind of what that's for. A little bit to the recordation and probate taxes, to Ms. Moon's comment last month, as well as Mr. Velassen's. That is correct. We did look back, check with the MLS service, and they indicated through the month of May that home sales are down about 19%, and you would know that as a realtor, as well as the dollar volume is also down about 18% as well. So it makes sense that would be low, something we'll have to look at going into next year. The franchise fees, if you look back at 65%, that's a couple of items. That's one that may be decreasing on us. We see the telephone right-of-way fees kind of decreasing a bit, not very concerning at this point. Prepared food and beverages, I think we finally caught up with the pandemic and being able to estimate or project our budget. Look, we're a little behind, but we're 1 month behind in the accrual, so that should hit 100%. And then all the way at the bottom, or before the little green boxes, you see the permits fees. Oh, I'm sorry, just above that, the communications tax. That is one that's been steadily decreasing since the state took all of ours and they took it, and then they said they were going to give it back. And for some reason, it keeps going down. I'm not sure why that happens, other than it's what happens when money goes to the state sometimes. So that's one we'll probably have to drop down as we come back to you. And looking at the other categories, the only one I really want to, you see the revenue and use of property, money and property. We did add to budget last time, and it is still cooking along at a right smart clip. As far as what we're getting, rates are still fairly decent in our investments. And then the grants in aid Commonwealth, that's the biggie. If you see a budget of 83.5 million, we've only collected 66 million to date. Don't panic. That's usually the last things when we go to August or so. The state funding comes in very slow. DSS is a big part of that. The comp board offices of sheriff, treasurer, commissioner, all of those come in a little late. So we're no reason to be worried about that one at all. And other than that, really, I think we're on target. Will be a good year revenue-wise, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I just have a quick question here. So, Ms. Robertson, on the public service tax, what did you say, when is that expected to come in? I mean, we only barely over half.
Usually in June is what you had indicated.
So it's
Period.
gonna-
Yeah,
So you're looking at 49% coming in 1 month?
Yes, it's only one payment per year.
Oh, 1 point, okay,
Yes.
so that's, and they haven't got.
Yes, and it's a
okay.
little bit of a guess. We feel pretty good with that based on
Oh, okay,
their
I was just
history.
wondering how it was
Yes.
gonna all of a sudden get up to 49%. So it's only one payment, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, I may not have been paying attention. The franchise fees, why is that so low?
It indicated through the analysis that our telephone portion of that is decreasing sort of naturally over time, but we're still, I think, indicated, Jason, that the right-of-way fees, or is that what is decreasing over time? Yes. So over time, it seems to be decreasing as the technology changes, as the way they bill changes and such. So that's one that we'll have to pay attention to closely when we reproject those.
Good thing it's not a huge part of the budget.
Yes.
Thank you. I guess it's on you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you, Brent.
Oh.
We're good.
Oh, well, you got expenditures. I'll be even quicker, I promise. Oh, yes. I think the departments here, both from a construction standpoint and operation standpoint, I know they do good work for the city, but from a fiscal standpoint, this was a very, very difficult year with the increase in inflation. Staffing is still an issue for us, and it appears that all of our operating departments will bring their budgets within the appropriation, which they have to. That's really not an option for them. But sometimes they run into that difficulty. So I think they deserve, all of the department heads and directors and the staff, a big thank you for how they work to still get the work done and do it within the fiscal constraints. So is there any other comments about the expenditure side? Well, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing y'all later.
I did have a comment if I could. Normally, within past years, part of the financial report includes the treasurer's report, and I know we get it separate, and it's just added into our miscellaneous, but I would ask if it could just be made part of the financial report.
We can. We actually don't receive that report.
Okay, you may want to work with the treasurer's office, because she sends it, but it used to be part of the financial report, and I've just been meaning to mention that.
Okay, yes, we'll talk with Evelyn
Yes,
and
work
try to
with
do
Evelyn,
that.
because she sends it up,
Yeah.
and we get it, but you don't know what to do with it. when
Would you,
get it. Yeah.
if that's included, would you prefer to have Evelyn present at the meeting in case there are any questions, or you just want the information in there?
I was just wanting the information unless I see something to ask for an update on.
Thank
But
you.
that's all. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
All right,
I'll
okay.
be fast. We actually have some good things to talk about. So I just wanted to give updates on a couple of items. All of these have been in your weekly updates, but I certainly want to let others in the community be aware of these. So we can actually say that the gap has been bridged. So the 12 miles of the Greenway, the Roanoke River Greenway have been completed. And so on July 28th at 10 o'clock at the Bridge Street Trailhead will be the ribbon cutting for the final piece. And when we bridged it in a big way, because it actually includes the largest bridge on the Greenway across the river. Again, that's July 28th, 10 a.m. We'll be celebrating that at the Bridge Street Trailhead. Also, August 1st is National Night Out. Of course, that occurs across the entire nation on that same date. Most events start around 6. There's a couple of them that start at 5. There are currently 8 events scheduled. I think that schedule has been provided to each of you. If anything changes, we'll certainly let you know, but certainly want to encourage folks to find out from within their own neighborhoods if there's an activity going on or one in proximity that they take time and come out. It's always a good opportunity to meet predominantly public safety officials from the fire department as well as the police department, but also your neighbors with it. So that, again, August 1st is National Night Out. I did want to take a moment and acknowledge one of the accomplishments in the past couple of weeks that our homeless assistance team had achieved. So they have successfully helped 100 individuals who have been unhoused to secure housing. Actually, it's 102 now, but 100. I think that's actually the most we've had in any given year, and we're not obviously finished with the year. So that has been both through really their efforts, but also you all allowed us to use some of the ARPA funds to actually add a couple of outreach folks to go to that. So that has helped us get out in the community more and make those connections. Still a lot more work to do, but I certainly want to acknowledge the 100 folks that they've been able to get housed so far this year. And then finally, Main Street Bridge. We have finally received approval from the railroad, so we are ready to proceed. So bids are being advertised in August, and assuming that we get successful bids, which mean enough of them and we can afford them, which is no longer guaranteed in today's economy or market. But assuming all of that proves true, we would expect construction to begin early next year, January or February, and we'll certainly keep everyone informed. We will also be, as I said in my update, we'll be re-engaging our community engagement out there. We had a very active community engagement at the beginning of the project, and we've kind of been on hold while we wait for construction. Now that we have kind of a target construction date, we'll start working with the businesses in the neighborhoods in that area to get ready for the detours, to make sure that people know the area still remains open for business and those types of things with it. So just wanted to update you on those items, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're now down to item 8, recommended items recommended for action. Amendment of the city code with regards to parking for garage, surface lots, and mobile pay. There's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance amending and reordaining Chapter 20, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Division 1, generally, Division 3, Duties of Police Officers, Penalties of Unlawful Parking, Division 6, Municipal Parking Lots and Garages, and Division 7, Parking Meters of the Code of the City of Roanoke, 1979, as amended, providing for an effective date and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, Brian, had you planned to talk to us about that today, or we just? All right. Okay. All right, are there any questions or discussion by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. So there shouldn't be no problem in parking now, going through. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. This is easier. Thank you. Thank you. All right, an execution, item B, is execution of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Roanoke and other jurisdictions to implement the mental health awareness response and community understanding services, the Marcus Alert Program. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution acknowledging and affirming the city manager's execution of a multi-jurisdictional memorandum of understanding between the City of Roanoke, Blue Ridge Behavioral Health, and surrounding jurisdictions for the mental health awareness response and community understanding services, Marcus Alert Program, and authorizing the city manager to take certain other actions as may be necessary in connection with this matter.
All right, is there any discussion by members of council?
Comment, Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bowles.
I'm just very excited about this. We've seen a lot of incidences, and of course, the one in Richmond that sparked the Marcus proposal. But it's great that we're going to now have trauma-informed reactions to some of the criminal elements that we have. And I think that's going to be very helpful in the future in making sure that there's no misunderstandings or anything like that happens like before.
Yeah, and I wanted to acknowledge the work that Blue Ridge Behavioral has done to get to this point, but also acknowledge, and since they sat through all of the earlier items, of course, you got Deputy Chief as well as Sonia Roman, so the work that our police department has done as well as our 911 folks to get this up and running, certainly want to acknowledge that. And also, as you all know, we had actually contracted with Blue Ridge Behavioral previous to Marcus Alert to provide some of these services, and in at least 2 recent incidents where someone had barricaded themselves in a home, we were able to do this joint response prior to Marcus Alert, which allowed police along with Blue Ridge Behavioral to end both of those situations without any problems associated with them. So certainly important program across the entire state, and glad that we're one of the early communities to be able to offer this.
All right. Okay. No further discussion, Madam Clerk, you ready to
Yes, sir.
call the roll?
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the resolution passes. All right, my script has a comment again from the city.
Yeah, I jumped ahead of that, so sorry. So, no more comments, so thank you. That's right. Yeah, I had some good news, so I wanted to get it out there, so thank you.
I just want to make sure we move on. Reports of committees, report of the Roanoke City School Board requesting appropriation of funds for various educational programs, and a report of the city manager recommending that council concur in the request. Donna Caldwell, Director of Accounting, is spokesperson. There's a budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Commonwealth, federal and private grant for various educational programs, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 school grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, any discussion by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number 2 is report of certain authorities, boards, committees, and commissions in which city council serves as liaisons or appointees. Are there any comments by council?
Mr. Mayor, I have one update.
Ms. Carr?
The Greater Roanoke Transit Company Board met earlier this afternoon. I just wanted to share a couple of highlights from that. There will be a soft grand opening with the new customer service center, which is also going to serve as the Greyhound waiting area. It's the building adjacent to the main building, and that will be later this summer. We're getting ready to enter a transit strategic plan process, which will create a new 10-year plan, which will build on the 40-year vision plan that's already at work that the Regional Commission worked on. It's been about 7 years ago now. That will be over the course of this next year. Several proposals have been received and are under review for the micro transit service, which will extend hours for transit to early morning, 12:15, and then Sunday service. And that should be active by the first of the fall. And then some really exciting news, and this was even before the transit center opened. Ridership was up in the month of June over 17,000 from the month of May. So we're very encouraged by those numbers. So, thank you, Mayor.
17?
It was up 17,000.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
I just have a quick question, Mayor, for the city manager. I just wanted to know, since they met, the EAB met, will you be giving us an update of the reorganization and how that's going? I'm just
Yes,
curious, I
so
haven't heard anything.
The weekly update had information about the officers that were selected, but they'll be meeting again at their next meeting to kind of begin some of the organizational work with it. And yes, we'll continue to update you all. And then I need to go back and look, because I believe we have them scheduled on our list of boards and commissions that come here to
Today.
joint meeting. I just don't know what month that is, so I need to take a look at that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you needed to have some of those filled that were not filled, because I know they still got some gaps.
Yeah, we probably still do have some vacancies that will need to be
Are they,
filled.
Ms. O'Brien, do you know if they're on there for today? I just want to get you guys going. I feel kind of semi-responsible.
So the board, as Bob alluded to, they met
Last week?
Yeah, they elected officers. The board is full, so there are no vacancies on the board. Tim is going to be working on some amendments, and hopefully in September we'll bring that forward.
And one of the amendments that was talked about in the organizational meeting is adjusting the
Term
frequency of meeting so that they're not meeting every month, but every other month, I believe is what they ended up with. So that, but it has to change in the enabling legislation that you all approved for.
I actually
for that.
think there's flexibility within there that'll allow for that.
If they want to, I think that's what they discussed before. If they needed to, they still could meet a little bit more often.
And that's how we did it, to get that flexibility.
Okay.
But yes, we will be continuing to provide you updates on, as they reorganize and as they move forward with those initiatives. And again, there will be a joint meeting with them. I just don't know what month that takes place. and I'll
Okay,
get
for
that
some
to you.
reason, I thought there was an opening on the executive board, but maybe it was filled. Okay.
It was filled, about a month ago. He joined us for our last meeting.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? All right, 9 is unfinished business. We have none. 10 is introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions, none. 11, motions and miscellaneous business. Let me say that I have ran out of patience with these people loitering and what they're doing. They're even bringing families out on these strips with dogs, and they're sitting there, they're walking, and Chief, I know that you talked to us one time about if they're just standing there, it's just like somebody wanting to sell Girl Scout cookies if they're standing there. But they're not standing there. They're walking up and down, and they have the dog following them. I mean, to me, it's getting to the point where they just don't respect what our ordinances says. And I think we have to teach them a lesson. And I'm not opposed to picking them up. Just if they don't get in the car and we're going downtown and let somebody decide. But you can't, it's a lack of respect. I mean, they got children. I see children on Saturday up on Hirschberger, and the strip is about 3 feet wide. They're asking people, cars, walking up. They're doing the same thing they see adults do. Somebody's going to get hit by a car eventually. That's going to happen. But I think we have to, and I would ask that Acting Chief Stokes look at this and have officers stop. I mean, it's just troublesome when you look out there. And now they have I saw a gentleman with, he had his dog sitting there. His son was sitting there holding the dog, and he's walking up and down the median strip. And it's getting, I think, in my opinion, out of hand. We've done what we can do. I went over to Bremerton. I went up to Floyd County last week, and they got a big sign saying no loitering, none of that. And I went over some areas in parts of the city. I didn't see that. I think they got their places picked out where they want to go.
Yeah,
But enough is enough.
Yeah, and again, just because I feel like I have to say this and then explain a little bit of the pieces. So, there is no prohibition, nor can there be a prohibition regarding loitering or panhandling. What we can enforce is them being in basically the traffic lanes or actually standing in obstructing traffic. And I recall, my recollection, and this is the piece that I'll have to follow up with and see, I believe not that many months ago, there was an arrest made, and it was, in effect, it was a test arrest for us in one of those instances to determine whether or not the courts were going to support that effort. And I will find out more information regarding that piece of it, because there is a city ordinance. The city ordinance prohibits certain activities in those areas. The state, a couple of years ago, made that a little more complicated. And again, it is not enforced, because we can't. We can't enforce against loitering or panhandling. We can enforce them being in traffic or impeding traffic, and that's where we've tried to focus those efforts.
Explain the difference real quick, loitering and panhandling.
Yeah, so if somebody comes up to you and asks you for money, that is not illegal. It is not something that we can enforce. There's not an ability to do that. If someone is simply, for lack of a term, standing on a street corner, loitering, what most people consider loitering, that too is not illegal. What is a violation of the piece of the ordinance that, again, if you're impeding traffic or you're getting out in an area where you're actually causing risk associated predominantly with the vehicular traffic, to be honest, then there are provisions in our code to be able to deal with that. Question is going to be, if we make those arrests, will that result in successful prosecution? That's what we've been trying to determine with that, so.
Just to clarify on that ordinance, doesn't it say that you can't be in the median if it's not in the crosswalk?
Yes, but then the state law made it complicated? Is that a good way to say it?
It actually, we wrote this after the state law and after a Fourth Circuit case trying to limit it. Remember that the reason that ordinance got put in place is we had a number of pedestrian deaths that resulted from people being in the roadway, crossing illegally, so we tried to control our pedestrian traffic. It is not intended to address panhandling or anything of that nature. It simply is a way to say, if you're going to be a pedestrian, you can take things from a car on the road, but do it from a sidewalk, not from the median. The median creates a pedestrian safety issue as well as a vehicular safety issue. And we tried to, in a very limited way, address our ordinance to address those specific concerns. And that was after we had experienced several pedestrian deaths that year that we came forward with that proposal.
So how do you enforce that?
It's there. It's a criminal provision that the police can enforce. One of the things that we did, you'll see around the city, a number of signs that reference our local ordinance and say, for those who are panhandling, because recognizing that may be part of what it is, we give the number to call. If you need services, here's who you call to obtain services. But you're not supposed to be collecting here. You can do it from the sidewalk. You're perfectly legal to do it from the sidewalk.
Right.
Not trying to infringe upon anyone's First Amendment rights to solicit
That's the key, is
funds.
the First Amendment rights. What I have seen, and I sent this to you, Bob, was some additional information to put on that has come down. I think it came from National League of Cities.
I think so.
And the thing I have seen since the mayor brought it up with regards to sitting on the median is now you have people who bring out the handicap and put their wheelchairs there. And that's what I'm concerned about. And I have seen kids run between cars over into from a turning lane into a straight lane. But naturally the police is not there, so they don't see it. And so I'm afraid there will be an accident. The other thing I've seen now is they have taken and knocked down the poles, so destruction of city property. There is no post with the information on, and that's costing taxpayers money. Because every time you go put one up, they knock it back down so that they can sit there.
Yeah, we actually had to change what those signs were made of because they were being destroyed. And so it had to be a more durable material for the signs that Tim alluded to. But yes, and I'll come back with additional information regarding, again, I know there was an arrest made. It was actually, the location was at Williamson and Melrose or Orange, where we've been having the issues right in front of Sheets for some time. I believe that's where that one was made. And I'll find out more about what the disposition of that was. Because yes, it has to be enforced by police. I've said this before too, and we cannot be, it would be inappropriate to be selective in that enforcement. If it is a football team out there raising money with their coach, they're as guilty of violating that ordinance as is somebody that's asking.
I agree. I agree. And it's about safety. That's all I'm saying. It's about safety. Kid that small, they're small, is going to get hit by a car. Coming up and down Hirschberger, and they're running to the car, running back to the car. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute.
You're right, Mayor, it is about pedestrian safety, and also what people need to remember is that medians are placed in highways where there's a higher speed. They are traffic control devices.
Right.
They are not the sidewalk. We have sidewalks adjacent to those roadways, and of course, individuals can use those sidewalks as anyone else can. You can solicit from those sidewalks.
Right.
But the medians are traffic control devices.
And they're doing that on Hirschberg and Cove on Saturday afternoon. So I'm letting the people know, I'm letting the officers know, Saturday afternoon, go up there, and wouldn't be opposed to getting a van. And if they don't go, load them in the van and take them down here somewhere for their own safety. Sometimes you got to do things for people to make them safe. They don't have enough knowledge to do that, and I blame the adults for putting them out there with buckets in their hands. You know, I'm a sports fan, you know, and I believe in that, but you don't do it the way you do it. Running up and down the sidewalk, I mean, I'm afraid for those kids, running with a bucket in their hand, and cars just blowing up and down the road. So I think I would like for it to be enforced. And I don't know, maybe we can get some more of us officers or, do something but to enforce that, because somebody's gonna get hit and probably killed by a car. Somebody's reading, looking at their iPhones or something, not paying any attention to it, or in a hurry, passing another car, and all of a sudden there it is. I just don't wanna overlook that.
No, and this has been a conversation with the police department as recent as last week, so it is certainly on our radar.
And also look at 10th Street in Orange. They definitely there where you have the split, where the cars are coming down going south.
Yeah.
And then the ones that go back north. That is a smaller, narrow.
Yeah, that's
median
where,
strip, and they have the kids on there with the buckets.
yeah, and we've also had in that area, youth selling water from the sidewalk that actually then run out into the street.
Yes, on 10th and Hunt.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is, as well as down to Peters Creek and Melrose on Sundays.
Well, Hirschberg and Krispy Kreme.
Yes, they do. They meet, they have their spots.
There's no shortage of locations.
Yes, and right now it's the season for the cheerleaders and the football players, the traveling teams. And it is unfortunate that the parents are sitting in the parking lots while the kids are out risking their lives to raise money for something that they're trying to afford. And that's the unfortunate piece right there for their safety.
Well,
it is a concern.
I'm gonna ask somebody somebody who's doing a doctoral study to take a look locally at certain sections of our city where we got stuff with loitering kids running up and down the street and then gun violence. There must be a correlation somewhere in there, so maybe we can find that. But that's all I had on motions and miscellaneous business.
And Mayor, I did have something if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I had the opportunity to travel to DC on Thursday. I went up on Wednesday on Amtrak and participated in, if you all would pass those down, participated in a summit, a youth summit that was called Raising the Bar. And it was for summer activities as well as after-school programs that the United States Department of Education was using opera money for. They started last year, and it's a comprehensive program that was evidence-based to ensure resources to respond to student academic, social, and emotional needs. And the emphasis was primarily on out-of-school time programs that occur before and after regular school days as well as summers. And they had information that was presented in the summit was camps that was for low income as well as those, some of them were free. But I found it to be very instrumental in what they were doing for low income kids. And I just thought it was worth sharing with the council as to what the United States Department of Education was putting forth, as well as trying to encourage localities to look at how they spend their funds. And I spoke with the superintendent as well, and she shared which I was able to share with them, the information she gave me, what the city of Roanoke was doing with their after-school programs as well as summer activities. But I was just hoping that maybe this is something our Youth Services Citizen Board could look at and glean some of that information as we look forward to our next summit, to see what other participants can come to be a part of the summit and expand it a little more and engage others to be a part of. And I also wanted to thank the council as well as the manager for partnering with the city, with the schools on 6 youth going and 2 chaperones going to the National League of Cities to serve as delegates. And they too will participate in some of these same things that came out of the United States Department of Education. And being a member of the Institute for Youth Education Families Council, we are now in the process of putting our program together, and hopefully we may be able to get the superintendent there, since we've got our 6 youth going, to see if she could participate in on some of the panel discussions as to what's going on in Roanoke. So I do want to thank you all for your support and supporting our youth and going to Atlanta in November. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing this information.
Yeah, and we'll share this with the Services Advisory Board.
Right, I've got some copies. I'll give you those so they can have.
Yeah, and it'll,
Yeah.
I'm particularly interested in what the Department of Education will do. Most of these, I think, are funded through the portion of ARPA funds that went to
Correct.
schools. So it'll be interesting to see how DOE anticipates, or if they anticipate, carrying that forward beyond ARPA expenditures. So, but yes. we've got
Yes,
copies.
and that's what I was going to say, when ARPA funding leaves. But they had several partners that they were partnering with to produce, to put on some of the programs. But I thought it was a very interesting summit, and
Yeah, and if you have
and
extra
I was
copies,
thankful.
we'll get those to them.
Thank you, and thankful for the opportunity to have been able to go up and participate.
So you fired up now, ready to go, get to it, and get it done?
Yes.
All right, we'll go. Yes, sir, Mr. Mosley. Yes, sir. Mr.
I
President.
just have a comment to make that's more almost like a public service announcement. So I was on social media this past week, and I saw from a friend, who I'm not going to share the identity of because I don't have the permission, a post that I considered rather troubling. Last month was Pride Month in June, but Pride really doesn't only last 1 month, it lasts all year. So I'm going to read what they posted. 2 weeks ago, I was working in our home office when I heard 2 cyclists on the Greenway pause outside our yard and comment on our flag, one yelling to the other, "I'm going to rip that down." Today we came home to find someone had stolen our equality flag. We made a conscious decision to stay in Roanoke, to establish a safe, loving home, and we've worked hard to make it a place of comfort, calm, and inclusivity, to be a part of the community we've come to love so dearly. We are lucky in that we don't live in constant fear, but many of our friends, neighbors, loved ones do. It was just a flag. It wasn't just a flag. It might not be just a flag for the next person. We are going to put up another flag. We are still going to make our home a place of welcome. We are going to be more active. Roanoke needs to be better than this. We need to be better than this. And as I close up my remarks on this, I just hope that whoever's at home or whoever took those flags understand that that theft is criminal. And doing so in a way that targets a community is an act of hate, and it is a hate crime, and is illegal, and it will not be welcome in this locality. That's all I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no further business to come before the council, we've been recessed until 7 o'clock. We'll meet in the council chamber.